Well, hello, everyone. Hello, and good Friday morning. And you are tuning in to Journey Through the Eyes, the EMDR podcast that is here to serve both seasoned and new EMDR clinicians, or just clinicians and healers in general, on their incredible journey and building their amazing private practices and also building confidence in their amazing, incredible selves. I am one of your hosts. I'm Tavera J. Brown. I'm a licensed professional counselor and an EMDR consultant in training. And my practice is Arise Psychotherapy and Coaching Services, where we are here to hold space to help people to rise and shine and live their best life. I also have with me my amazing, beautiful co-host, Miss Kathy, on the couch. Kathy, tell the people about yourself a bit.
Yeah, I'm here in Twin Falls, Idaho, and it's just the new year, and Tamir and I are just waiting for the EMDR International Association to approve our basic training this year. So we're just on our toes waiting for that, and I'm a EMDR consultant, and now I am a fellow of thanatology, so I got that new credential, which means I am an instructor for grief. So excited about that. And what else? I'm just excited to be here in the new year with you guys and celebrate things. So I'm happy to be here. I wanted to introduce Miss Julia Stone. She is amazing. We came together as part of her certification program. And so I'm just going to turn it over to her to allow her to introduce herself and about the amazing work that she does.
Thank you so much. Julia Stone, and I am a licensed professional counselor in Alabama. I have a solo private practice. I've been working and have completed, just have to finish the paperwork on certification in EMDR. I'm a yoga instructor, and my main focus is EMDR intensives, but also just, incorporating EMDR and into weekly practice. Yeah.
I absolutely love that. We are going to be having a conversation today, folks, and really this is not just for us as EMDR clinicians. Hopefully, those who are in our listening audience, no matter where you are in your profession or what your career path is, we're going to be talking and leaning in today and asking the incredible question on what do you really want for yourself? What do you really want for yourself in 2025? I think it's a juicy and a beautiful question because a lot of the times, I don't know about how you all feel. It would be great to hear your feedback. I think a lot of times we can get on autopilot and we know pretty much what we don't want. We know what we are tired of. And sometimes we stay swimming in that water, in the waters of just all the things that we want to either avoid or don't want to have to deal with. But sometimes it's challenging, or we don't, you know, either know how, or know that we have the internal right to ask ourselves, what do we want? And so I want to hear from you, ladies, just on your thoughts and feelings about that.
What I love about this and about Julia's, we've kind of both struggled with the EMDR intensives. I feel like I just was thinking about this the other day. I think I've been doing them for just about 2 years. And so I feel like kind of this year for me is more about what Tamira says, rinse and repeat. And just feeling that confidence and the stress that I had with opening my businesses and things like that. I think I'm finding that the systems are working and I can release some of that old energy that I've had, I have to do this or that and just kind of let the system work. And so, you know, um, like last year, I had needed some help with marketing and I had a new assistant this year and bookkeeping got, all condensed into one spot. And so just some of those daily tasks that were just on my mind have just condensed themselves. And I just think it's like a releasing, of like the stress of building the businesses and the trainings and the intensives. And now I'm just kind of it's kind of like the calm before the storm per se. So I'm a little like, um, I don't want to say nervous, but just watchful maybe of like, okay, what's gonna come? So that's kind of what I'm doing is just simplifying and being able to really, I guess, as Thomas Zimmerman taught me, move in the direction that you want to go. And so that's kind of where my intention is at this year is just, is this a direction I want to go? And then if it's not for myself, I just release that and really appreciating when things are simple. That simplicity can really help me take care of myself and my mental health and really keep my focus. So I'm just curious for you, Julia, um, what kind of newness do you have going on this year?
Yeah, I think for me, this, as I think about this year, even though this isn't my word for the year, but I think about being aligned. Like I want the way that I grow my practice and the way that I practice to be very aligned with personal life, but then also my personal, just everything to be aligned, my personal life to be aligned with my professional life. And so as I think about like incorporating that, I have two, all my children are adults, and two of them live very far away. And so as I think about, changing my practice is full and I love that, but it doesn't offer a lot of flexibility. So I want to build some flexibility into that so that I can go, travel up to Wisconsin and visit my family there, as well as California and Arizona. So I think as I've thought about it, I want to move towards EMDR intensives. I mean, I love that way of working. But it's perfect because it really is aligned in the way that I like to work with clients, but it also gives me the flexibility to have less weekly clients so that I have that flexibility. I can schedule long weekend, trips out of state. So yeah, so I think in being aligned professionally and personally, flexibility, mobility is a little kind of where I'm focusing. Yeah.
Wow, I think you mentioned a very powerful word, and Julia, you are speaking my language because I have been alignment has been my word for the year, and getting in alignment and recognizing that number one, alignment, which sometimes can be a very kind of cliched word in my opinion, because it's kind of thrown around everywhere, and you hear people, especially people who are in tune spiritually. They're like, I want to be in alignment. I want to be in alignment. Well, what is alignment? Well, it is that place of cooperation and agreement um, between what you say you want, what you communicate, and how you exude or you expend your energy every day. Or, in another word, alignment is the vision that we hold for ourselves, right? And then ensuring that our mind, the thoughts we think, the conversations we have, and our everyday practices are all in rhythm and in sync, moving us in that direction. And I think sometimes, I know even for myself, in my practice, um, not only am I doing the work of being a what I call a professional helper, right? But also I'm a mom, I'm a daughter, and have all these other roles. And sometimes it's so easy to lose focus or get off track and not really hone in. So I think this conversation on what do you really want for yourself can help us and help those who are listening to get into alignment, to look at what does that picture, what does that really look like for you? And your beautiful share on that gives you the capacity to be flexible and to be mobile, right? To make moves, which is, I think, is incredible. And so, Kathy, want to hear your share on that. Mhm.
I think you just reframed what I'm going through in alignment. I also wanted to say, just because I was struggling, not struggling, but didn't have a clear system last year, doesn't mean it wasn't what it was supposed to be. I think when we think about alignment, I think about just ease and those kinds of things. It doesn't necessarily mean it's not for the highest and greatest good, just because I'm not, it's not flowing like I feel like it could. That we do have to put in that work to be in that place. It's kind of like, when you go to a yoga class and it doesn't feel good, but you still go. And then there's that one class that's like amazing, because you do all your work, over time. I think um, I love that. I wanted to hear a little bit, Julie. I'm curious about your EMDR intensive practice for clinicians that are beginning to start or think about EMDR intensives. Could you share a little bit about your experience about how you do it and explain your program? I think you have a beautiful setup. Hers is more of a weekend model, mine is more of a day model. And talk about your program that you offer and how that's taught you the lessons that has taught you and kind of your vision of where you want to go and advice maybe that you could offer clinicians that are looking at that.
Yeah. So I offer like 3 hour or whole day intensives, like just in my regular weekly practice. And I think that's, I don't know, for me in EMDR, I think that that's a much more efficient and beautiful way to offer EMDR. Unfortunately, the insurance model has us down to 45, 55 minutes. Um, but as much as clients are able, I encourage them to, to move into the intensive format. But then as I was doing those just like 3 and 6 hour, intensives, I realized that I wanted to offer something more. Um, and so I started offering, it's a 3 day weekend. I call it just an individual personal retreat. So clients, come into my area and I offer them like Airbnb. So I have a couple of different resources that I use for that. So they come in and I put them up in an Airbnb and, provide breakfast and lunch that's, there waiting for them at the Airbnb. And so the idea is that they come and that Airbnb serves as really like a sacred space. Like this is where we're going to do the work, and it's a container because they're not moving in and out of their daily life. They're not dealing with daily stressors. Really, it's a retreat. They're getting away and they're just focused on the healing that they want for themselves. And so it's a way that they show up in a big way for themselves, and then I'm just there to guide and facilitate them, through the process. And by not having to go get breakfast or go get lunch, I find that they can really just focus on the healing work. And so it's a very deep dive. Um, yeah, so kind of my process with that is the first, so we work in like 3 hour chunks. So it's 6 hours a day. Flexible, like we take breaks when we need a break and we take lunch when it feels aligned, to take that break. But the general format is 3 hours in the morning and 3 hours in the afternoon. And so what that looks like is the first morning, we just sit and we go through their story. So I just really have them start and kind of narrate for me their life story. Um, and I'm listening for, what emotional needs were neglected, um, how they adapted, how they coped with that, like what parts of self formed to deal with those unmet needs. And I'm kind of just jotting all of that down as they're going through their story. So that first, 3 hours is pretty much just the client walking through their life story, the parts that feel important to them. And if I notice parts that are kind of left out, then I'll, make notes and circle back around to that at the end of the morning so that when we take that first lunch, we generally have an idea of like what we're going to work on for the remainder of the retreat. And so then I take that take a 2 hour lunch and I, sit with that and kind of formulate the ideas and the things that I'm going to present to them as where we're going to go for the rest of the time. Um, in which I generally have an idea because we've done, that consultation call. I guess I left that part out, but we've done the consultation call, so I kind of know like what their goals are and where they want to end up. Um, so yeah, I think about the parts of themselves that I kind of hear coming forth, protector parts, critic parts, child parts that have needs that still need to be met. Um, and so then the remainder of that time is kind of a balance between doing the parts work, doing that work, and then EMDR. If they've had specific traumas, specific events that happened, using EMDR for that, but also using EMDR to tap in and resource older, wiser self. Um, yeah, so that's kind of it. And then at the end of that, so the rest of it kind of takes on a life of its own, right? With that being our goal and with diving into parts and EMDR. And so then at the end, I usually offer them, have this wonderful resource. She's a great sound bath. I can't think of, but it's not just singing bowls. She does flutes and tuning forks, and I mean, she's just very talented in sound bath. So if she's available, then that's how they end the retreat, is with the sound bath. So yeah, it's very exciting to me. Like I really love to just journey through that process with them over the 3 days. And I just find that it's so much more effective than, so that's 18 hours of therapy. But if you think about it, it's so much more because we're not greeting and saying goodbye, and we're not catching up on what stressor they may have had. It's 18 hours of laser focused healing work. And it's very exciting to me to be able to walk through that with someone over the weekend.
Wow, Julia. So, first of all, you know, your presence is incredible. And to me, your presence and your spirit just embodies the presence of the healer, something that Kathy and I have been talking about for, I think, a little over the year. And not only that, but you, in a very beautiful and a very organic way, just really, if people are listening and tuning in, you just raise the bar for us. And recognizing that, number one, how powerful client-centered therapy is. And I have a lot of people that are on my community that I want to just take a time, because EMDR, for folks in my community, know very little, especially in African American culture. Many of them have never even heard of EMDR, have no idea what these intensives and healing things are. And what you're listening to and tuning in as a listening audience is, we're talking about a therapy approach, a therapy pathway, a therapy journey that can help you to heal mind, body, and soul in an incredible way. And rather than just showing up in 1 hour therapy from one week to the next, you get to experience in EMDR, or what we call EMDR intensive therapy, where you get to have a sacred, very powerful experience where you get to heal, grow, and transform. And Julia, in a matter of 18 hours, sometimes six, sometimes, Kathy may have a different program, but the healing is real. The healing is organic. And Julia, that is incredible. Kathy, we want to hear from you.
Yeah, I think, how did I get started? I'm curious, Julia, to hear how you got started and what was that decision. I think a lot of clinicians struggle with making the decision to go or create time in their schedule from the billable hour to the intensive model. And I struggled with that as well. And, it's this fear of build it and people will come, and how do I, and then you have the marketing and the all, and it's a program, right? So how do you transition from billable hour to a program? And so my journey involved Cambria Evans. Um, in EMDR intensive program, which I can put in the show notes. But it walked me through how to create some of those decisions about do I create the 3 hour, the 8 hour, do I create the retreat? And so I really liked that because I could do a workbook and kind of plan it out. And then the fear just kind of went away of, do I have the skills? At that point I was EMDR certified, and that's one of the reasons I got certified was to say to people, hey, listen, I have the skills here, but also validating for ourselves, kind of what Tamir and I talk about, like, we are the sacred healers. This is a sacred space. I love how you end this with a sound bath. I think this intensive allows us to bring some of those holistic parts of ourselves forward, and maybe that not might not be present in the insurance model. So I love that we can really actually go in a higher vibrational energy, that we can go, get out of this stress and go in a higher vibration, and the retreat component as well. And so I think trusting that, but also having a process and a protocol to get through, not protocol, but just a structure. I think so that helped me. And then I transitioned into couples intensives and I got trained to do the Gottman workshops. And as I was going through that model, I thought, oh, I could use these workshop components to create the Gottman couples intensives, which has also been successful for me. And my programs are an 8 hour or 14-hour program. I don't do a weekend program with that. But I think just right now with my family life and having my twins and my 7-year-old, I just need to be a little bit realistic. I don't want to burn myself out, but I also want to have that freedom of really getting to see and witness people being transformed in that time is just amazing. I can't tell you, going from the 1 hour sessions to these 3 hour models, people's brain get the defenses get like you were talking about, Julia, the protector parts, they get sort of relaxed, and we can really get in there to where some of those parts might not be so active, and we can really get to a really good part of the brain in that time. And so I think it's just been one of the most effective things that I've ever done. It's been one of the most validating things I've ever done. And it's been one of the most relieving, getting out of the billable hour component things that I've done. And so I really am a proponent of trusting ourselves. By the time we get, EMDR clinicians are some of the most trained clinicians I know, and validating that for ourselves and getting the sense of you can do this. You're very trained, and bringing in those holistic components of ourselves that are sometimes silenced can really help as well. So I know that was a lot there, but I'm just curious, Julia, for you, what was your journey like going from, regular sort of therapy, billable hour kind of time and transitioning into the EMDR intensives? Can you describe that experience for us?
Yeah, so for me, yeah, like you mentioned, EMDR therapists are very highly trained. So when I in grad school, I had heard and done a little bit of, in our classes or whatever, a little bit of introduction to EMDR. And I just had that in the back of my mind that, okay, this is something I'm going to pursue. And so when I was able to go to EMDR training, it was it was just such a deep, it was a very moving experience for me, I guess, because all of my CEUs and everything up until that point, I think, I don't know, it just excited me about therapy once I went to the EMDR training. And the EMDR trainer that was conducting that training started talking and mentioning intensives. And so I was like, well, I definitely want to know more about that. And so, long story short, I ended up going and doing my own personal intensive. I was like, I think I need this for myself. So I went and did my own work with one of the trainers there on an EMDR intensive. And so then I said, okay, um, I'm going to pursue these trainings. And back then it was a little bit harder to find. Now there's Cambria Evans and there are other people out there doing some trainings on intensives. Um, so I did some training on an EMDR intensive through, I don't even, I can't even recall the name of it now, but it was a colleague of Sandra Paulson, um, and whatever organization that she offers her trainings through. I can't recall it right now at the moment. But anyway, I did some trainings with the EMDR intensives. And so I started just doing the 3 hour and then turning that into 6 hour. And I think as I was doing those, I began to realize that many people haven't ever had a chance to tell their story. Maybe they've never even viewed their own life as a story and kind of looked at their whole life. And they it's just they go from this trauma to this trauma, or they're focused on the situation they're in right now. And being able to step back and look at, okay, wait, what's my story? How did I get here? How do I keep finding myself in this same pattern? Um, and so I think when I really stepped into the 3 day model, that was my goal. Was first, I need to offer this space for their story needs to be told, but it needs to be heard and witnessed. And having someone attune with them to their story is very powerful. Usually when we're breaking for lunch after that first morning session, clients will say, "Wow, that was a lot of work," or that was deep, or that was intense for me, because it's the first time that they've ever really had an opportunity to tell their story. And so I think that is what solidified for me this 3 day model and this intensive retreat just really feels powerful for me, to be able to offer that and to be able to sit with someone and honor their journey in that way.
Wow, Julia, I think that's so powerful. And as I kind of, just rewind the tape a bit as we talk about moving in 2025 as professional healers and EMDR therapists and just help us as just humans in general, looking at what it is that we want. And what I'm hearing from both of you is just a beautiful expression of, number one, wanting to, in the work that we do, wanting to really serve the human beings that are sent our way and getting the healing and the results that they deserve and desire through this incredible mind body healing therapy, EMDR, which is known in the mental health field as the golden gate to healing. And we get to journey with them, right? Through that incredible experience. And for me, one of the things I've really become aware of is it's easy for us as human beings and professionals, especially therapists, to tune into what our clients are needing, what they want. But it's very difficult sometimes for us to turn that lens around and say, okay, well, what do I want? And this conversation is really highlighting that not only are we here to offer incredible healing journey and pathways and experiences for our clients, we want the benefits for ourselves, which is freedom, flexibility. When you're a mom with twins like Kathy, you need ease and flow and time to rest, recharge, or pour into the people that you love. And so, one of the things that I think it's important in 2025 is that we remind ourselves and remind other professionals that the work you do, you have the divine right to look and assess that work and how is that work going to produce the fruit you're desiring and dreaming for yourself. Otherwise, it leads to a lack of fulfillment. It leads to the crispiness, the burnout, right? And maybe we can talk about burnout in another conversation, but I was sharing with another colleague, it's not whether or not can we stop the burnout from happening. It's going to happen. It's just a matter of when, but what can we do? Right. And this is one of the things that we can do to kind of lessen it is to hone in and say, what do you really want? Not just for your clients, but what do you want for you? What do you want? How do you want the work that you do to be a blessing to you, to your own mental health, well-being, to your own family and your livelihood? And I think that this is just an incredible demonstration of what that could look like. And so, um, one of the questions I would have or like to see or hear from you ladies is, what would you all say that why it's sometimes so hard for professional helpers to even begin to consider thinking about beginning aligning themselves with what they want and not being other people focused, but self-focused, right? And building a plan from that way. What would you say makes it difficult for people to be able to do that?
I have a great story on that specifically. First, I think, I've worked in child welfare and a substance abuse clinic, and then I worked in an outpatient at a hospital. And I think, first of all, it's just for me developing that sense of competency within all of those systems of like, okay, the patient comes in, I can do the treatment. I know they need this assessment, these reviews. I know the paperwork. I know what the insurance is looking for. I needed to have that confidence in myself. And then also the modalities that I felt like within my clinical settings, all of those, I felt like I could add value and be a leader for myself and understand my own systems within their system, if that makes sense. So I could just formulate the view of myself as being competent for myself of like, yep, I know this needs to happen and this is happening in this system, this is familiar. And that's sort of where I was at when I started at the hospital. And then, I had been looking at EMDR and I wanted to be trained for a long time. And then a training came here. And so I think when I went to the first EMDR training, I had this sort of dichotomy within myself because I had been in this evidence-based trauma treatment group for substance abuse. And I was like, why aren't these patients getting better? So I had to have that kind of ethical dilemma in myself of like, we're doing the evidence-based thing. Why are these guys relapsing? I'm not getting it. I was working with parolees and people that were within the criminal justice system, and I wanted so badly for them to, have what the healing, but they weren't getting it. And I think I was like, there has to be a better way. So there's that internal dialogue of like, there has to be a better way. What is it? And then I went to EMDR training and I thought, oh my gosh, like, I had a little bit of guilt of like, oh, I've been doing it wrong. And I don't think it was wrong, but I think the power that I've seen and the transformation that's possible wasn't expressed. And I think people have said EMDR is a pseudoscience and it's woo-woo. And when I saw this for myself, I had to have that experience of seeing this therapy in practice for myself. So if you're considering EMDR, I would say, experience what it actually is. There were some naysayers or kind of like Tamira had said, people said, oh, this therapy isn't for you. It's too far out of your reach. Same thing for me. And I think just my internal commitment to say, I hear you, but I need to know for myself. And so that drive of like, okay, but why? Why is it out of reach? Why can't I do it? And just exploring for yourself. And EMDR kind of can seem a little ethereal until you get the ideas behind it. It's not just a training, it's a whole system of community. And so understanding that it's a whole community, it's a whole protocol. There's lots of training. It's not just go to DBT training for adolescents, it's a whole system. And then I know this is a long answer to Mira, but it's like being able to validate like, oh, okay, I can do this now. And then when I was considering or hearing people go into private practice, and I remember discussion with my supervisor at the hospital saying, I don't know if you can do it. And I was going back to that same idea for myself of like, I don't know if you can do EMDR. It's out of your reach. And just being like, the first year in private practice, I just did billable hour. And I think for myself, I had to understand what that system was for myself, what it was like. And then when I was like, but there has to be so much more than billable hour, right? So same thing with the treatments. And then when I decided, oh, I can try to do something different, and I started researching and seeing what other people had experienced, I just gave myself that permission to be like, okay, just start small. You start with 1 3 hour time on a day that maybe you don't have as many clients, just do the 3 hour slot, see how that goes. And it came and it built itself. So just building that confidence and awareness around that. I also have a workbook that the clients complete before the intensive. So that helps me. And I think just trusting that people need what we have. And now I'm uh, that emotional process, and that confidence in myself. I'm really asking myself, why are people saying I can't do this? And what is it in myself that I know I can do? And so that would be my process. And what I would say is just do it in small bites and trust yourself to go where you need to go. And people aren't always going to want you to do that. They want you to stay safe in that system of this is the way it's always been done. And it doesn't have to always be that way.
Powerful, you know. Go ahead, Julia.
Okay, yeah. I think if I remember the question right, but I think that obviously fear can hold us back, right? And maybe some scarcity mindset that, oh no, I have to take this client. This client can only come. I think we had just the scarcity mindset of I've got to get full. I've got to, and a lot of that's valid, right? Like we've got to put food on the table. We've got to provide. Um, but being able to do your own personal exploration of the fear and your own limiting beliefs and saying, okay, if I'm aligned with the work that I feel called to do, that I feel is my work to do, and if I feel aligned, then I've got what it takes and I can do it one step at a time. So I think finding support too, like finding your people that are going to support you and cheer you on, I think that's important. And also just acknowledging your fears and facing them and doing it anyway.
Yeah. Both of you all shared some incredible, uh, just, it's incredible because we're on this journey we call life. And we're not here to just um, do the mundane, you know. In my view, I believe that we all have such a bigger reason of why we are here. And you said something, Julia, that I think is powerful, and it's about discovering that work that we are called to do and owning that work and viewing whatever that work is as something sacred. And the fear. I shared in a post earlier this week that because there's so much information about fear and don't fear false, all these things, I decided to befriend the fear. I decided to befriend the fear, whether it's shooing it, avoiding it, and or just replaying it and constantly tuning into it and allowing it to talk me out of the incredible work I now know I am called to do. I befriended it. And I think that that's one of the things that we can, or a strategy that we can use to help us to show up in a big and incredible way and move towards the life that we want, the life that we desire and that we deserve. Um, I think the biggest takeaway for me in listening to this incredible conversation is that we deserve, we got one life, right? We got this one incredible life and we are here and we have a right to take up space. Especially those of us who are therapists and we spend all that time in grad school. We get to own the fact that we've done our work and we now have the opportunity to show up in our world and spread light, spread healing, provide this incredible therapy of EMDR that can help people to not just talk about their problems, lean into their story, and heal mentally, emotionally, mind and body, and transform their entire lives. And so I think it's incredible. And so we want to hear from you, Julia. Just any last words or things that you want to share for our listening audience before we wrap up for today.
Yeah, thank you for having me. Yeah, I think that I would just encourage, like I was kind of mentioning before, find your support, find your Um, find your people that are going to encourage you as you do this work that you feel called to do. And I absolutely love what you said about making a friend of the fear. That's so powerful. Um, being able to identify your fears, like get to the root, get down there with the fear, and really make a friend. I love that, and I think that's very powerful. And then find your support, find your people. Yeah.
Thank you so much. Miss Kathy, give us some parting words and take us out of here for today.
Okay, listen, this is important stuff that we're doing. Recognize and validate yourself, befriend the fear. But I remember when I turned 40, it was like, now's the time. I'm doing it. So just really trust yourself and know that you can do this and find people that are aligned with your magic and your intention. And, just know that you can do these things. And I think having that vision of like, what am I called to do? And follow it. It's not always going to be clear. It will be messy, but also too, it's just the way that you're going to trust yourself. And so I just really appreciate both of you for the beauty, the light that you bring, the healing, and the work that you do on a daily basis to be able to help the realm that we're in advance and be able to help other clinicians know you can do this. And so I respect and honor both of you for the time that you've devoted to your personal work and how that reflects in your practice and the people that you invite in. So it's a beautiful, beautiful conversation. Julia, tell us where we can find you and the services that you're offering. Don't forget to say that you're going to be a consultant so that we can work with people to help you teach them how to do EMDR as a new service.
Yeah, so my website is juliawstone.com. Yeah, that's the best place to find me. Yeah.
And what
And
are services that you're offering if people are looking maybe to do an intensive? Can you describe some of the that process for our listeners?
yeah, so I have a page, maybe a couple of pages, I can't even recall right now, on my website dedicated to like giving, answering your frequently asked questions about the EMDR intensives. I've had therapists that come to do that, just like I went and did mine. So, everyone is welcome. We get together on a consultation call just so you can ask me questions and, we can get a clear idea of what you want to accomplish on your intensive. So yeah,
Good.
um, yeah, thanks.
I really appreciate you and all the goodness that you bring to the world. So I'll turn it over to Tamira. Um, Take us out.
Well, we are so grateful. So thank you for tuning in, sharing your Friday with us, Julia. You are incredible. So thank you so much for being here. You can follow us and visit Rewire 360, the university that is holding space for EMDR therapists who are on their amazing journey to grow in this amazing career field of being EMDR therapists. And so visit us there. And just tune in, check us out, and we will be tuning in with you all soon. Next Friday, I believe, we're just holding incredible conversations to support you all on your journey of just thriving in 2025. So we look forward to seeing you next week. Have an incredible day.